Hey friends, my name is Jackson and welcome. Mm. Hey friends, my name is Jackson and welcome back to my channel, Gender Not Found. It's kind of late right now, and I know it's still December, but I said I would record a video if I felt like it, and I feel like it. So, I haven't uploaded the chapter of a Guardian Angel that I found on my computer yet. I'm gonna do that in the next day or two, but I just wanted to read a chapter tonight, and my plan is to read 4 or 5 chapters and then put it all into one video, but it's gonna be scattered obviously. I'm not just gonna record 4 or 5 chapters at once, but what I wanna try and do, what I'm hoping to do is be able to finish the book in like January or February because it's getting really close to being done with it and I just wanna finish it up because I'm really looking forward to see what happens next. I wasn't planning to record a video tonight, but I want to record a video tonight because I'm not in a rush to finish things. I'm just chilling out, enjoying my holidays, and my mom's my mom my mom's Christmas break starts in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 3 days on Friday. Right now it's Tuesday. My mom's Christmas break starts on Friday. And I was gonna go to the movies tomorrow because my mom was gonna wash my hair tomorrow, or I was gonna take a shower. But I realized that my mom reminded me that I have a not a therapy, physiotherapy appointment. So I had to shift my movie to Wednesday. But Trolls Band Together is still playing, so I'm gonna go see that again, probably by myself and just hang out and watch it because I need a break and I need some popcorn and my my bank account is draining itself of money because I've been buying a lot of stuff. And I actually got a freaking steal on a 20-gallon um tank that I bought that was it was used and it was $50. It was at the reptile store when I was there buying crickets on Saturday, so I just thought fuck it and I snatched it up. And the original plan was to just come back with Erica in 2 days and get it because they said they were gonna hold it. But they said they could hold it if I bought it, but the lady offered to carry it out to the car for me. My mom can't do it because she has some issues, obviously. She has a bad back and a bad shoulder and stuff. I don't remember. Anyway, she has some. Anyway, the lady offered to carry it out to the car, so we made room for it, and it's just in my mom's back seat right now. I didn't even expect to be getting a tank when I went in there. I just went in there to buy crickets for my tarantulas, and it turns out that they had a tank on sale, so I was checking it out, and then I saw the price, and it was only $50. And I was looking around at the different tanks. It didn't say how many gallons it was, but it was smaller than the 40-gallon tank, but it was bigger than a 10-gallon tank, so I thought it would be a good size for my Kenyan sand boa. And even if it turns out that my Kenyan sand boa needs a bigger tank, it won't need to be upgraded for a while because I'm getting it as a baby. That's the whole point. It's starting out as a baby and then it's gonna grow up with me. So I probably won't need to upgrade it until it gets much bigger. But anyway, either way, I got the tank. I just grabbed it. I was gonna leave it there for a couple of days and then get Erica to help me bring it home. But honestly, it's probably better that I didn't because I wasn't sure if Jason would be there or would be able to help me carry it up the stairs. And I can't just leave the tank in her back seat. Also, our relationship is over, and I don't really want to get into that right now. I just want to read the book because I want to find out what happens next. I'll go more into that in the vlog that I'm planning on posting. It might be up already. I don't know. I'm recording things all out of order. I'm just recording whatever I feel like if I feel like recording. So I'm just kind of recording things out of order right now. So if I record something, it might be uploaded sooner or later than another video. It just depends, and I'm just recording whatever I feel like. It's 8:36, so if my alarm goes off during this chapter, I'm gonna have to take a second to take my pills. But I'm gonna I'd like to record 1 and maybe 2 chapters tonight, and also I have to make food, so I'll probably be able to. I'll do that after when I'm like, when I'm... Okay, so I've uploaded... Well, by the time you guys watch this, I will have uploaded Chapter 96. Chapter 97, Deja Vu. So, I'm not gonna lie, that thing with the blindfold, that was a little more than fun, Mo said, watching as Kate took a sip of her tea. Turning her head back towards him, she smiled a Cheshire-like grin. He was leaning against the threshold of the doorway, clad in gray sweatpants and smoking at her. It looks like somebody's finally up. I was actually wondering if I was going to see your face this morning, sugar. Mo walked towards her, and leaning over the back of the couch, he kissed her. Good morning, kitten, he said in a low voice. It is now, she said with a blushing smile. Good morning to you, too. Coffee's on and there's a scoop of cocoa mix in your mug. Today is going to be so divinely sweet, she said, taking a sip of her tea. I can feel it, baby. Something big is going to happen today. It's weird how on point you are with that kind of stuff. FP just sent me a text to meet him at Nightosphere at 11. No context or nothing. I don't know, maybe Marceline and Hudson figured something out. He said, looking down at his phone. You don't mind my running out for an hour or two, do you? Nope, you can't go. You don't mind my running out for an hour or two, do you? Nope, you can't go. Never, she said, rolling her eyes. Modestus, do what you have to do. You know already. Kate watched as he added coffee and creamer to the mug. Stirring it and taking a sip of the mocha concoction, he smiled. I do. Also, I'd never drink coffee if you didn't tell me about this, he said with a grin, sitting next to Kate on the couch. Try it iced, then you can thank me, she said, smiling as his arm rested across her shoulders. Leaning against him, Kate looked up, batting her eyes. Actually, if you did want to thank me, would you mind stopping at the grocery store on the way home? I wanted to make a pot roast, but we don't have carrots or beef bouillon. I also wanted to pick up a fresh loaf of bread, too. Now Mo smiled, feeling as her fingers interlocked with his. Bringing their hands up, he kissed the back of her hand. You wouldn't have had to give me the look for grocery shopping. I can absolutely do that. I should be home pretty quick after, he said, looking up at the clock. It was just after 10. With a stretch, he yawned, feeling the unexpected tickle of Kate's fingers on his stomach, and quickly he pulled away. Betrayal! Kate laughed, now being held at bay. Modestus, sugar, you know I can't help it at this point. Yeah, but it's not fair that you have no ticklish spot in your body at all, he said, squirming away from her reach, still holding her off. Maybe you took all my ticklishness. That or I wasn't born with any, but I choose to blame you, Kate said, now struggling to reach his sides. Mo laughed, feeling as Kate's resistance faded and she relaxed against him, planting kisses on his chest. I like being goofy and playing like this with you, he said, leaning forward and kissing the top of her head. Me too. It's something I didn't get to do much of as a kid, Kate said softly, closing her eyes and reveling in the sensation of his fingers dancing through her hair. I get that. I don't have siblings, and I didn't have many friends before high school. It was mostly just the kids at the summer parties. What about your cousin? Bubba was about 13 when I first met him. We really didn't get to know each other very well because he lived with his mom before then. Aunt Dessa married his dad around that time, so we've only really known each other for like 8 years. I can't say it's been an agreeable 8 years, but we definitely didn't have playtime with each other. We played video games, but that's just not the same. that, uh, but that's just not the same. You're not wrong. What are your plans for the day? He asked, now draining his mug, watching as Kate finished her tea. I was gonna work on some art, maybe do some gardening. Maybe I'll make a pound cake or something, Kate said with a shrug, sitting upright and watching as Mo stood. I can't wait to see what you make. It's always something amazing, Mo said, now walking back to the bedroom, changing into jeans and a t-shirt. When he returned, he was pushing his wallet into his jeans pocket and grabbing his shoes. Leaning over the back of the couch once again, he kissed Kate's cheek, now taking her empty tea mug from her hands and bringing it into the kitchen with his own. When he got to the front door, Kate was waiting for him, his keys in her hands. I know you already kissed me like 10 times this morning, but can I have another one before you go? Kate asked. Feeling the touch of his hand on her waist, Modestus pulled her close, holding her tight enough against him to make her feel as if all her cracks and broken pieces were melding back together. He tilted her head, bringing his lips to hers, feeling as she melted against him. Slowly he pulled back, still holding her tightly against him. And just a little bit longer? Kate asked softly, reveling in the sensation of being held and touched. As long as you want, baby, he said softly. There was something about Kate that was different from all the other girls he'd come to know. Kate needed to be held. She needed to be touched. She absolutely craved human touch. That was something Mo had no problem doing. If he needed an excuse, the fact that it made her happy was more than enough for him. Mo, th- Mo, though, had grown to love these moments with her. The feel of Kate's body slowly relaxing in his arms as she held him, how relaxed and energized she looked after. Slowly she released him, stepping back now beaming. Drive safe, I'll see you later. Kate closed her eyes as he kissed her forehead one last time before walking from the house. Kate watched with a smile as he waved and drove off. Turning, she walked into the bedroom to get ready for the day. A short 10 minutes later, she stared in the mirror, satisfied. Eyebrows on point as per usual. Makeup barely there and flawless. Hair slash edges killing it with a capital ING. Killing it. Like, damn girl. It made her almost sad that she'd decided to garden today. Grabbing her silk scarf, she carefully wrapped it around her head, knotting it in place. Walking to the bedroom, she pulled on a pair of jean shorts and a baggy t-shirt before hunting down her sun hat in the hall closet. Outside, she tended the garden, harvesting vegetables, watering the plot and the rose bushes, trimming the thorny tendrils back, slowly taming them. Kate paused, leaning forward, smelling one of the flowers. They were a beautiful blush pink, and the smell was sweet but not overly so. Glancing up, Kate stilled, spotting a figure ducking behind the tree across the way from her. The sight made her wary. With everything going on with Marshall and Fiona, Kate knew better than to assume that anything weird was just simply coincidence. Still, she wasn't going to be scared out of her own yard because some weirdo wanted to stare either. Keeping an eye on the tree, Kate continued pruning the rose bushes, watching him as he watched her. She moved from one side of the yard to the other, as she tended to the flowers in the pot next to the stairs. Kate smoothly palmed the spare key, sliding it into her pocket, making it seem as if she were just dusting her palm clean. Kate glanced up again, her hat hiding her eyes. He was still there watching her. Sliding her phone out, Kate checked the time. It had been almost 40 minutes. It had been almost 40 minutes since she noticed him outside. If she were being honest, she felt more comfortable knowing where he was and having her eyes on him. Feeling the phone in her hands buzz, Kate looked down. Baby cakes. On my way to the grocery store. Be home soon. She started to reply, but glancing back up, Kate was startled to see the man more than halfway to her. Her heart pounding, Kate stood and entered the house, locking the handle and deadbolt behind her, sliding the chain on the door. Quickly, she set her phone to mute. If he was going to try to come in, she wanted to hear him. She felt a chill run down her spine. Turning towards the door, Kate listened to the familiar scratching sound of metal grinding against the door lock. Dialing 911, she quickly gave the operator her information. Though to Kate's growing panic, she almost felt as if she wasn't panicking enough for the dispatcher to take her more seriously. Please, I don't know who this man is, and he's trying to break into the house, Kate whispered, watching through the windows as he circled the house. Is he inside the house? No, he's walking around it. The police will be on their way. There's a few calls ahead of yours. Hearing this, Kate felt the white-hot spike of pure terror. There is a strange man, one I don't know. He has a knife, and he's trying to get into my home. Please, you have to send somebody? She said, desperately listening as the man repeated what he'd said only moments earlier. The sound of shattering glass in the back caught her attention immediately as she gasped. He's inside, she said in a panicked whisper, listening to the back door open. Glancing at her phone, she saw a missed call from Mo, and quickly ending the call, she dialed him. Hearing heavy footsteps approaching as she quietly backed away, Kate slipped into the bedroom, tucking her phone into her bra, and looking around, she spotted Mo's skateboard. Moko pulled up to Nightosphere at 11 and walked in. Checking his phone, he saw an additional text from FP. Wondering why they were meeting in the recording rooms, Mo made his way down the familiar halls. Opening the door, he entered the recording suite, spotting Ignitus sitting on the couch in front of room 2. The light above the number 2 was red, and Moko recognized that someone was recording in the booth. Welcome to the Scream Kings family reunion, FP said, standing and walking over to Mo, slinging his arm around his shoulders. You, my chum, have been hella glum, and let me just say, dude, it's a downer. Like, I may have to rename you Debbie because for real, he said, giving Moko's shoulder a squeeze and getting a jab in his ribs in return. What's up, Big? What's up, Big? What are we doing here? We are waiting for our third person who's currently working in booth 2, and because Ash and I got into it recently, I didn't invite him, he said with a shrug. But it's not a big deal. He'll get his meeting too. Ugh. Dude, you're being vaguer than vague. That's because you were surprised for the person in room 2. he said, plopping back on the couch, now kicking his feet up on the coffee table. I do have news, though. Marcy is pretty sure she and her dad found a way to get us out of this contract, FP said, watching as Moko's eyebrows raised in surprise. Dude, that would be amazing. All I do is worry about everyone. I don't know, man. I feel like something bad is about to happen, and I'm not sure I'm gonna like what it is, Moko said, resting his hand on his stomach. He'd felt this way for most of the morning, though Kate did say good things were coming. Dude, this will be great, I swear. Ignitus said, his voice cutting through the younger man's thoughts as they both watched the light over the two shut off and the door open. 3, 2, 1, ta-da! FP said, waving his arms toward the door as Marshall walked out, looking at Ignitus as though he'd grown another head. Looking over, he spotted Moko and grinned. Moko? Marshall? Dude! Dude! Marsh, where have you been, man? I was almost sure you ditched us for greener pastures. Can't say I blame you if you did, though, he said, rubbing the back of his head, Marshall slinging one arm over his shoulder, much like FP had done only a few minutes earlier, giving him a one-armed hug. Dude, we ran for our frickin' lives. Lich was out for blood, and I was too sick and too far behind to trust my family around that maniac, Marshall said, looking frustrated. I can't say I blame you. I'd feel the same way, Ignitus said, shaking his head. Speaking of, anyone hear from the Hell Demon since we've been on hiatus? I haven't seen or heard a thing from the guy. Same, though we made sure to drop off the grid. We don't even have actual cell phones. We're using burners, and even still we're nervous, Marshall said with a sigh. I can't thank Hudson enough for this. Without his help, we'd be sunk about now. He's a nice guy, Moko said softly. Every time he looked at Hudson Aberdeen, he was reminded that at least one part of his mother was still on this planet with him. A small part of him warmed at the thought. On the topic of Lich, I've seen and heard nothing. The only times I've seen the dude was with you guys, Moko said, watching Marshall's face. He seemed more on edge than usual. You okay, Marsh? Marshall looked up at him before looking away with a sigh. To be honest, no. I'm worried about Bloodrain, I'm worried about Fiona, and I don't even want to touch worrying about Ari as a topic. I would kill somebody for her. I never thought I could love anyone more than Fiona, but I've come to realize that the amount I love my child far exceeds the love I have for anything or anyone on this planet. What's the matter with Girlie? FP asked, and though he wouldn't admit it, Moko's interest was piqued as well. I didn't want to say it around her. I didn't want to make her more upset. I think Fiona might have postpartum depression. The nurse said it was something that could happen, and with everything going on with Lich, and with how sick I was, I genuinely think I was missing some big signs from Fiona and how she's been doing. She's always been very good with the baby, Marsh, Moko said softly, watching as Marshall shook his head. I would never question Ari's safety with Fiona, but at the same time, it's a lot more than that. The nurse said it's much more than just not being able to bond with the baby, he said, pulling his phone from his pocket and powering on the screen showing his last internet search. Look at this, he said softly, pulling out the medical website showing them. A lot of these fit for Fiona. Depressed mood or severe mood swings, excessive crying, loss of appetite, inability to sleep, insomnia or sleeping too much, overwhelming fatigue or loss of energy, reduced interest and pleasure in activities you used to enjoy, intense irritability and anger, fear that you're not a good mother. The list goes on for 2 more pages. I'm worried for her, especially with all of this Lich crap. The site says it's more likely to happen with people who have had traumas or problems during the pregnancy and birth. Fiona's had both. She almost needed a C-section. The baby was stuck for almost 20 minutes, on top of her kidney infection. Not to mention what Lich did to her while she was pregnant. I feel like I've caused her and you guys nothing but grief. Is there anything you're doing for her now where you guys are laying low? Moko asked, FP nodding in agreement. Wasn't she talking to that creepy-looking lady? Ignitus asked, watching as Marshall nodded his head. Yeah, she was talking to Simone. I already called Ellen to see if she could book a few phone appointments for Fiona. You know Fee's mom, any task given to her is a done deal. I wouldn't worry too much about us, Lich is a freaking psycho. There was only one way this could have gone with him involved. Mo's right, Marshall. Besides, Lich has been in his glass tower since you guys bounced. You seem to be the one he's gunning after. I don't know if he'll turn a blind eye to us, but for now, it looks like he might. Just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll have. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll have this solved in no time, Ig said, now changing the subject as he turned to Mokro. So check it. Marcy is a genius, and we owe her a shit ton. I personally offered her my firstborn as a form of payment, he said, pulling the pack of cigarettes from his pocket, popping one into his mouth. But payments aside, Marceline basically found a loophole that lets us work at Nightosphere as solo artists who just happen to collaborate together. In a nutshell, if enough of us sign as solo artists, we can force a change in our current contract. Hudson and Marcy both said any changes mean we have to sign to agree to those terms. If we don't sign, we can make the contract null and void. They will legally be out of our hair. They will legally be out of our hair, he said with a smirk, now sliding a folder towards Moko, who pulled it towards him. Looking at the sheets inside, he noticed that everyone in the band who'd done vocals at all had signed, including Fiona, whose signature bore the wavy mark of having been done digitally. There was a blank packet of forms with his name tagged on it with a yellow sticky. As he filled out the forms, they all caught up. The mood in the room lightened considerably as time passed. Marshall showed the guys recent pictures of Ari, sending some to Moko, who grinned, seeing how big his godchild had become as they talked about the goings-on of everyone. They had listened amazed to FP's story about the discoveries of his still-living grandfather. Both Marshall and Moko shared a glance when Ignitus mentioned rescuing Finn. While they knew Ignitus didn't hate Finn, it didn't seem too much like his usually overprotective, brotherly self to go save the blonde from his own stupidity either. They discussed how Marshall wanted to sweep Fiona off her feet the moment he saw her, how he wanted to hold Arya and kiss her head, and sing her to sleep as he held her when he got back to them. They discussed the delicious pound cake that would be waiting for Moko when he went home, and how everything Kate cooked or baked turned out magazine-worthy in looks, and tasted amazing. FP was calling her the next Mrs. Wright, much to everyone's amusement. Checking the time, Moko aside, it was amazing spending time with the guys. The time had flown by, but it was close to 2 o'clock, and he still had to go to the grocery store. I hate that I have to leave, but I gotta get some stuff at the store for dinner, guys, Moko said, sounding bummed. I'm here all week, Marshall said, watching Moko nod with a grin. It was great to see you, dude. Just be careful, Marshall. I will be. I'll see you in a few days, he asked, watching as Moko nodded. Definitely, Mo said with a grin. With a hug to Marshall and bumping FP's fist, Mo walked from the room, hating that he was being a responsible adult, but feeling happier than he'd been in a little while. Pulling out his phone, he texted Katie Cat, on my way to the grocery store, be home soon, XO. Right. Kate sat on the couch, her mind racing as she struggled, feeling the sharp pull of the duct tape against her skin. Her ankles, knees, and wrists were bound together, and her arms were taped against her body. It reminded her of the prayer position from the group home with Mother Superior, except this time she wasn't on her knees. Pushing her arms away from her as hard as she could, Kate could barely feel the tape budge. She had already tried and failed in getting the tape off her mouth. However, it was more than obvious with the rolled-up sock, the double layer of duct tape, and her silk scarf round her mouth that he wanted to silence her. Kate looked around. The pair had left as quickly and quietly as the first man's partner had arrived, and she hadn't seen them for some time now. Flashback. Grabbing the skateboard, Kate readied herself, cocking the board back, getting ready to swing. She could hear him going through the house, slowly approaching. When he passed through the threshold, she swung, watching as the board struck him in the face. Kate listened to the sickening crunch as he swore, bright red blood pouring out onto the cream-colored rug. Kicking him to the ground so she could run past the man, Kate sprinted down the hall. Immediately she crashed into another masked intruder who kicked her feet from beneath her, sending Kate sprawling. She'd struggled violently beneath him as he pinned her to the ground, kicking, scratching, and clawing. Kate felt as her legs were grabbed tightly by the man whose nose she was sure she'd broken. Now the man before her pinned her arm with his knee, grabbing her face, stilling it and looking in her eyes. He had a ski mask on, and even still she could see he was smoking. Jerking her head out of his grasp, Kate tried biting him, feeling as her head was pressed roughly back against the carpet, her assailant laughing. Looks like she's a wild one after all, he said to the man behind him, who was still wrangling Kate's kicking legs. Now he leaned close, whispering into her ear. It's always the quiet ones, isn't it, kitten? He said in a low voice, looking her up and down. He watched her face flush, her eyes wide in embarrassed shock as she stilled. The only person who ever called her that was Modestus, and he only ever called her that in the bedroom. Now that you know that we know more about you than you think we know, how about we have a little chat? Hmm? He asked, sitting upright. The sound and feel of duct tape being wrapped around her ankles and now knees was sending shivers down her spine. Kate tried her best to stay calm, staring at the two men as they continued on, and two things were jumping out at her about this encounter. They didn't seem to want to hurt her. At least the one she didn't hit in the face with the skateboard didn't seem to want to hurt her. They knew things, private things that never left this house, which means that at some point she was 90% sure the house had been bugged. What do you want? You are going to pass on a message to your boyfriend, he said, now lifting her skirt as Kate let out a panicked shriek. In seconds she was silenced, gagging at the cloth shoved in her mouth. He pulled the silk scarf from her head, using it to tie the sock tightly in place. You're going to behave, or I'm going to unzip your skin and wear you like a little coat, he said in a dangerous voice. The way he smiled, even though the mask made Kate still immediately. Now then, this message, and it's more of an invitation, really, he said, pulling out a permanent marker and popping the cap off. He was writing on Kate's stomach as the other continued, taping, now binding her arms. Has officially been delivered. I think she broke my nose, the heavier of the two said, his voice thick and stuffy sounding. Kate felt as her shirt was pulled down and watched as the slimmer of the two briefly glanced over at his partner. Yep, that's broken. He barely looked. I have approximate knowledge of many things. Any hit hard enough would break a man's nose. Now leave her alone. She's got a cute face, and she's feisty. The bosses would love her. Besides, you remember what happened the last time you messed up a cute face, he said, now snapping photos of Kate, who blinked startled at the sudden flashes. Together they lifted her, settling Kate on the couch before walking towards the back door, the man pausing once again. Just so you know, kitten, this was us being nice. If your man doesn't show tonight, your pretty face won't be around here for him to look at much longer, he said, walking from the room, leaving Kate in silence as she struggled against the ties binding her. End flashback. Kate was so focused on trying to get free that she didn't even notice the sound of the front door unlocking. The sound of the door's chain clanging sharply behind her, though, made her nearly jump from her skin. Kate, can you open the door? You were so right about today. Turning her head, Kate could barely see over the back of the couch, Mo's face almost visible through the slat of the door. Kate, are you okay? She tried responding, to say something, but the gag was doing its job far better than she'd liked. Kate? Wiggling, she rolled, pulling her knees into her chest and pushing against the back of the couch. She did her best to push herself up when suddenly the pillow slipped. Kate let out a muffled gasp as she hit the floor, her eyes watering. That one hurt a little bit. What the hell? The sound of crunching glass met her ears. Looking up, Kate watched Mo step into view from the back entrance, and the moment he saw her, his face dropped, and the bags of groceries hit the ground forgotten. He was by her side in moments, sitting her upright and working her bindings loose with trembling hands. Carefully he peeled the tape from her mouth, untying the scarf, allowing Kate to spit the sock out, taking deep, shaking breaths. What happened? Who the hell did this to you? He asked, freeing her hands, feeling as her fingers touched his lips, silencing him. Shh. Now he looked at her face. Kate was scanning the room, though finally her gaze landed on him. Leaning close, Kate brought her lips to his ear. You cannot react, Modestus. Promise me. Slowly he continued, peeling away the tape, carefully working her free. I promise I'll do my best, he said softly, now having freed her arms. We need to whisper. Lich bugged the house, she said, feeling him stiffen, pausing for the briefest of moments before he continued working the tape loose. What happened? Now she looked down towards her stomach, vividly recalling the cold sensation of the Sharpie on her stomach. Slowly the tape peeled away from her skin on her thighs. Lich! His men. They said he has a message for you. That I was to deliver a message to you, Kate said, feeling her voice catch. Mo stared in concern as Kate slowly lifted her shirt. She watched the flurry of emotions in his eyes, though overall he looked utterly devastated. Written on her stomach was one word and a time written in shining gold ink. Blood Rain, 8:30. Mo gently pulled Kate into his arms, feeling as she scooted onto his lap. He continued removing the tape from her ankles, finally freeing her and holding her tightly. Kate, I'm so sorry. He called me kitten, she whispered softly. You're the only person who's ever called me that. The guy, he said Kate trailed off, but the way her eyes searched his, Mo knew she was more afraid than she was letting on. He told his partner not to hit me, to leave me cute, that his bosses would love me. What did he mean by that? She asked in a hushed whisper, sounding as frightened as she looked. I don't know, but I'm going to this meeting, and I'm not leaving you alone here again, he said softly, his thumb tracing the red welts left on her cheeks by the tape. Come on, he murmured softly, standing up, bringing Kate with him. Let's go in the car. We can talk freely there. Slowly he led her to the front door, Kate leaning against him. Both watched in shock as the door slammed open with enough force to snap the chain. Kate shrieked in shock as police officers swarmed in, their guns trained on Mo, who raised his hands in shock, almost dropping Kate with how quickly he'd let her go. Police, don't move! Hands where we can see them! On the ground, now! Stop! Please stop it! He wasn't! Kate watched in horror as Mo was slammed to the floor and cuffed with his hands behind his back. What the hell? I live here. You've got the wrong guy, he said as he was jerked to his feet and dragged through the door. Hey! Now he looked back at her. Please, you have the wrong person. Please, you have the wrong person. It's not him. That's my boyfriend, she said in a rush, feeling her heart pound watching as the first car drove off. You didn't even read him his rights. This is completely illegal, Kate said, watching as the man simply stared at her, looking her up and down before smirking. She took several steps back, feeling her blood run cold. She recognized that smirk. Well, kitten, you're right about that. This was very illegal, but I think we've established I don't really play by the rules, now do I? He turned to walk from the house, pausing at the threshold. Lich will still be expecting him to show for the meeting, by the way. Whether he actually makes it to today's meeting will be another story entirely. She watched as he walked from the house, and creeping forward, Kate watched through the door as he got into a car with no plates and drove off. Grabbing her keys, phone, and purse, Kate locked the door to the house. Climbing into Mo's car, she swore, realizing that he'd had the keys when they took him. Pulling her phone from her pocket, Kate swiped through, finding Marceline's contact info and dialing her. She sat, pulling her knees to her chest, listening to the line ring. Hey, Kat, how's it going? Marcy, I need FP's phone number. Oh my god, Marcy, they took Modestus. Lich's people took him, Kate said, feeling as her body shook. Wait, what? I'm with Iggy right now. It's just us. I'm gonna put you on speaker. Tell him what you just told me. Kate, it's Initis. What's going on? Kate laid it all out on the table. How the guy was watching her after Mo left. How she was bound and gagged. How she was left tied up for the better part of an hour after they broke in, until Modestus found her. The message written on her stomach. How they took pictures of her. The man's unsettling and terrifying comments. How she thought their houses had been bugged. And how the whole arrest had gone down. Kate, we're coming to get you, okay? Kate, we're coming to get you, okay? You're gonna stay with us until we figure this out, FP said, his voice calm, helping to keep her level-headed. Where are you now, Kat? I'm in Mo's car. I'm locked in here. Marcy, I'm scared. What if he comes back? It was the same guy. Of the two guys that broke in, at least one of them were one of the officers that took him. Don't worry, Kate. We'll figure everything out. We'll get him back. For the last time, you have the wrong guy. That was my house that you took me out of. It's my primary residence. It's where I live with my girlfriend. Kate was the one who made the call about the creepy guy. That was not me trying to get inside, Moko said, running his fingers through his hair for what felt like the millionth time since he'd gotten here. His hair had to be sticking up by now. Look, let's start at the beginning. What beginning? My girlfriend called you people because some dude was trying to break in, which he succeeded in doing, bound and gagged her, and God knows did what the hell else. Now the officers walked from the room, leaving Mo alone. He had a bad feeling he was going to miss this meeting with Lich. Scanning the empty walls, Moko sighed. He hadn't expected any clocks, but it definitely would have been nice. Mo had a weird thing about needing to know the time. Not knowing bothered him. It felt close to 6:15-ish, and he wanted to confirm. His internal clock was usually pretty spot on, and when his stomach growled, it confirmed his suspicion. Kate had become famous in the group for having a full meal, hot, ready, and waiting between 6 and 6:30. For the briefest moments, Moko wondered if telling the time with his stomach was weird. Realizing the silliness of it, He dropped the thought and tried to focus on a way out of this mess. The more he thought about it, the more it bugged him. They hadn't even booked him, and from FP's many exploits, Moko knew they were supposed to do that every time. It felt like he had been alone forever at this point. Now he was wondering if maybe this was all a setup, and they were Lich's men instead. The more he thought about it, the more pieces of the story fit together. This had to be Lich. He was beyond all reason a sadistic bastard, and Moko didn't put it past him to do something like this. But some of these pieces didn't fit. This wasn't Lich's usual MO. Normally, Lich sent a message in whatever messed up way he felt like. That was normal, but it was only if he were ignored was his wrath more than felt. Him terrorizing Kate the way he had done was as normal as the messed up dude could get, but still. The door opened, and once again 2 officers entered. He felt like they'd been gone a while. Sitting alone in this dreary room was really messing with his sense of time. Now that you've had some time to calm yourself, I want my phone call. I want to tell Kate that I'm okay, and that I probably won't be coming home tonight. I won't be going home tonight, will I? He asked, looking back and forth between the two men. No, you won't. You won't be getting that phone call either. Suddenly the door opened, and a 3rd officer entered. There's been an issue in the B-Wing. The lightning storm messed with communications there. I was told to get you guys to head over there to help maintain order, while connections are patched. I'll watch this guy for you. Also call into the boss. Moko watched as the two officers shared a look, before walking from the room, leaving him alone with the female officer. She waited a beat, then opened the door again, looking around the room on the other side of the two-way mirror. She turned towards him immediately. You are gonna owe me so bad if this messes with my career, she said, now uncuffing him, much to Mo's shock. I'm a friend of a friend of a friend, and that's all the info you're getting from me. Let's go, she said, checking the halls and leading Mo from the room. What time is it? He asked, watching as she checked her watch. Almost 8. Crap! Do you work for Lich? He again asked, knowing he was very much annoying the blonde. Maybe he should shut up. Who? What? Shut up! I said no questions, she snipped. Reaching out a hand, she stopped him from walking into the hall, just as another officer walked by. Once he'd passed, they continued on. She made him wait in the hall as she quickly ducked into what was labeled the evidence room, before returning and leading him to the release door. If anyone asks, I got called to B-Wing and let you go as questioning was over. Capiche? She said, handing him a paper bag with his belongings in it. Loud and clear. The door was snapped shut before he could even thank her, and turning, Moko walked towards the road. He looked up the road both ways, watching the faint speck of headlights glowing in the darkness. As he pulled his phone, keys, and wallet from the bag, he'd expected the car to blow past him, but to his surprise, the minivan pulled over ahead of him. Hurry and get in! You're gonna miss that meeting if you don't hurry, a vaguely familiar voice said from the open window. At this point, life was weird enough today, so without hesitation, Moko pulled the door open and climbed in. Mo was more than surprised when he saw Fiona's brother, Jake, sitting in the driver's seat. So we're off to go bring you to some villain in a race against the clock, sound about right? Jake asked, taking off down the road, Mo simply nodding in shock. Would you have any idea what the hell is going on? He asked, now looking to Jake. Well, this is about to sound wicked cliche, but Kate called Marcy, who called Finn, who called me, and I reached out to my contact in the PD. He said, pulling onto the highway, speeding up, quickly changing lanes. You're just beyond lucky you were at her precinct, or you'd be asked out and still waiting. From everything I've heard, and from the general feel of things, you were set up. I don't know by who or why, but after Finn explained it all, that's the general gist I got. Jake, what do you know about organized crime? Moko asked, looking at the buildings as they passed by. They were making great time, and he could even see Lich's Tower of Hell off in the distance. Depends, what do you want to know? How often does someone change their MO? MO like modus operandi? Yeah, I thought that Lich was behind this, but now I'm having doubts because this isn't how the guy works, he said, watching as the building approached, looming in the distance. He's a sadistic prick who likes to instill utter terror into people. This is his MO. Scaring people puts them under his thumb, and it's his source power over us, but I feel like this wasn't entirely him. Using Kate the way he did to pass a message was Lich to a T, but having me arrested before I could even see the guy, that's not like him. Sounds like there's dissension in their group, Jake said, now feeling Mo's eyes on him. What do you mean? I mean, one part of the group seems to be getting its own mind on how they want to run things, and it's not Lich's rules they're following, Jake said as they pulled up. It was 8:25. I'll wait here for you. Go handle what you've got to do." Hearing this, Moko opened the door. "Yo, hold up," Jake said, stopping him, watching as he turned to face him. "Man to man, advice from a black man to you dating a black woman," he said, watching as Mo paused, nodding to show he was listening. "It's common knowledge that we, Kate and I included, as African Americans, get the short end of the stick. It's also common knowledge that women also get the short end of the stick most of the time. A good chunk of the time, black women in general are only left with the short end of the stick because of societal issues. You already know about the looks the Whispers you two get for being together. You probably know how, even now, in this day and age, interracial dating is still sometimes looked at like it's something horrible by some people. But the one thing you cannot forget, your girl is your queen. Kate is more likely to get the short end of the stick than anybody you know. So it's your job to defend your queen as her chosen king. She chose you. So go in there and prove to the both of you that her choice was the right one. Go in there like you're the baddest mother on this planet and own it. If he's surprised to see you in his office, then you'll know it was him." Kate sat on the couch in the apartment waiting, and while doing so, her suspicions about Marceline and Ignitus were immediately confirmed. They were definitely an item, and they, much to her amusement, were a cute one too. They'd been trying the whole time Kate was there to make it seem as if they didn't live together. It was absolutely not working. With the way they moved around each other, it was more than obvious to Kate that whatever these two had was extremely intimate. It wasn't until Kate called them out on it did they stop. She was happy for them and promised not to speak of it to anyone else, watching as they both relaxed at her words. Marceline gave FP an excited look. "Can I tell her?" Ignitus took a moment but nodded, smiling at Marcy's excitement. She turned to Kate, now spinning a ring on her finger and extending her left hand to show her. "We got married! We, we got married!" Hearing this, Kate laughed, now hugging her friend. "I'm so happy for you guys, but why are you hiding it? We each have our reasons. I don't want Lich knowing about Marcy in my life. The less he knows about her, the better." Ignitus says Ignitus said, sitting on the arm of the couch, Marceline sitting in the seat next to him. "I don't want to cause problems in the band. Ash and I didn't end on the best terms. All I wanted was my dad and grandpa to be there, and Iggy made it happen," Marceline said, giving him a glowing look. "Look, two things. Screw what Ash thinks, and I'm still never getting over the fact. Look, two things. Screw what Ash thinks, and I'm still never getting over the fact that Hudson and your grandpa abducted my baby sister off the street for the wedding," he said, shaking his head in amusement, making the two girls laugh before they finally sighed. "Okay, not to be the buster of good moods, but what are we going to do now?" he asked as Marceline spoke up. "I already called Finn. Finn said he would call Jake and see if he could reach out to his cop friend," Marceline said, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "At this point, it's basically a wait and see, because we don't know what precinct took him." Hearing this, Kate looked to the floor. This wasn't the news she was hoping for. "Man, Marsh is not going to handle this well. We legit just had the conversation today about Lich and how he was leaving us alone," Ignitus said, shaking his head again. "This is such a damn mess." Moko walked into the building, breezing past the security. He was in the elevator, his thumb jamming into the top floor button as the panicked woman hurried towards him, the elevator door closing in her face. He was on a mission. Jake was right. He needed to make a point. Also, he was pissed, and that helped. Storming by the stuttering secretary and shoving the door to the office open, it slammed loudly off the wall. Moko took immense satisfaction in watching Lich jump at his desk, sloshing his tea onto it and himself. It made him human, which made everything he was about to do so much easier. Slamming his hands on the desk, he leaned into Lich's face, glaring at him, looking for any sign of surprise or deception. If anything, Lich looked affronted and confused. "What the hell was that bullshit?" he snapped, staring the older man down, Lich's stare only shifting when the secretary began speaking. "Mr. Lich, I'm so sorry. You leave." The woman vanished in an instant, the door closing quietly behind her. Finally, Lich returned his gaze. "I'd merely sent you a meeting invitation, by all means. So, what the hell was the point of having me brought in by the cops if you wanted to see me so badly?" Moko watched as his brow furrowed and knew immediately that his thoughts had been spot on. It wasn't Lich. "If you could elaborate. You sent some asshole into my house to use my girlfriend as your memo pad." "And then?" "I got your fucking message," he snarled, leaning closer. After that, Lich said in a clipped tone, your bullshit PD cronies almost busted my door off the hinges and took me to the station, interrogating me about what happened to my girlfriend for hours. You say you offer us this bullshit protection, then do shit like this? What's the point of any of it other than to torment us? Do to me whatever you want. I signed up for this bullshit, but you or your men ever touch a single hair on her head again, it'll be fucking war. Moko growled, shoving himself back from the desk, feeling as it scraped against the ground at the force as he stood there, glaring at Lich, who now steepled his fingers in thought. With a nod, he finally spoke. Well now, this has been an informative meeting. I'd invited you here in hopes of discussing with you, singing in place of Marshall and the band continuing on with the tour. Hearing this, Mo was shocked. I can't do that. We're Marshall Lee and the Scream Kings, not to mention I don't have Marshall's range. I can really do 2 or 3 of all our songs. That was a lie, but he definitely wasn't going to let Lich know that. Together with Mr. Flint, you will be able to cover enough songs to put on a concert without Marshall, Lich said, now standing, walking Moko towards the door of the office. Towards the door to the office. Given the circumstances of today's events, I'll postpone this discussion. We'll call you with a new date and time for the meeting, he said, pausing in front of the secretary out in front of his office. Leave your contact information with my secretary and you, he said, his arctic tone now on the woman in front of him who visibly shrank. Have DC call me immediately. Turning, he walked into his office, closing the door behind him. Moko walked away from the secretary, leaving his cell and home phone number with her. He headed down the stairs, not trusting the elevator down. Yeah, I don't blame him. Jake was waiting exactly where he'd left him, Mo watching as the lights turned on, the engine starting as he approached. I just got off the phone with Marcy. We're gonna meet and swap you, he said, watching as Moko nodded silently. What did you find out? I was right. It wasn't him. Any chance you've got a cigarette? He could feel his whole body shaking. Was it rage? Anxiety? Fear? He wasn't too sure because, at the moment, he swore he couldn't feel a thing other than the shaking. I mean, it's not exactly a cigarette, but I've got something you can smoke in the glove box, Jake said as he pulled out of the parking lot, watching as the younger man popped it open before turning to look at him, holding up the lighter and a joint. Dude, you're incredible, Mo said, grinning as he lit it, inhaling with a sigh. Rolling down the window, he watched as the smoke vanished from the car. He offered it to Jake, who shook his head. Nah, dude, you need that more than I do. Thank you, he said, flicking the ash out the window and hitting it again. Already he could feel his body relaxing, the shaking having stopped. After his third hit, he put it out. He wanted to be clear-headed enough to try and figure out their next move. The ride was over faster than he knew it, and thanking Jake again, Modestus climbed out of the minivan, getting into Marceline's car. Almost immediately, Kate was on him. Her hands were on his face as she examined him, checking him all over. Hey, I'm okay, he said softly as Kate nodded, her hand holding tightly to his. Scooting closer to her, Mo pulled Kate into his arms, feeling as her arms wrapped around him, her face burying in his neck. Moko, you guys are going to be spending the night at our place. Moko, you guys are going to be spending the night at our place, and because you're bound to figure it out as fast as Kate did. You're dating Marceline, aren't you, Egg? Nah, I married Marceline. I've even got the pics to prove it. But obviously I want to keep this quiet, so if you mention it at all outside this car until I bring it up, I'll be forced to feed you your own liver through a straw, dude, Ignitus said, giving Mo a pointed look. You know I'm not going to say anything, Mo said with a grin, watching as his friend smiled in return. And you know I had to say it, FP said, watching as Mo nodded in the back seat. The ride back to the apartment continued on silently, Kate still holding him tightly, and sooner than he'd expected they arrived at an apartment building. Everyone entering, making themselves at home. Ignitus flopped on the love seat, Marceline beside him, while Kate made her way to the kitchen, bringing a warm plate of food for Mo, whose mouth was watering at the thought of Kate's cooking. She made the roast she'd promised him this morning. Have you eaten at all today? He asked as Kate sat next to him, placing the glass of ice water next to his plate. No, I wasn't hungry, she said, shaking her head. Immediately Mo stood and walked into the kitchen, making her a plate, heating it for her as she did him, and brought it out to her. I know you probably won't be very hungry, but you do need to eat, he said, softly, watching as she smiled at him. Besides, I know the chef, you'll love it. Now he smirked, taking a bite, watching as Kate did the same. Okay, that was the sappiest crap I've heard in months, FP said, and immediately his shoulder was playfully slapped. Oh, stop it, Iggy. You're just as bad, if not worse, when it comes to me, Marceline said, her tone teasing. Watching as he scowled, she took his hand. We are going to give you guys some time alone, Marceline said, now standing, pulling FP with her towards the bedroom. You guys have a good night. Yeah, night? Ignitus said, as Marceline pulled him into the other room, the door closing behind them, leaving Kate and Moko alone. The first thing Kate did when the doors closed, catching Mo completely by surprise, was kiss him. She climbed right into his lap and kissed him as if every life on earth depended on it. He held her tightly, feeling as her body began trembling, her shuddering breaths coming between each kiss she gave him. Placing a hand on her cheek, Mo stilled her. He watched as Kate pulled back, her green eyes quickly welling and overflowing with tears as she took another trembling breath. Modestus, I thought I lost you. I thought they took you and that you were going to vanish like my parents did, she said, unable to stop her tears as she wiped her cheeks, Moko pulling her close. I'll bet you haven't cried once today before this, he said softly in the most soothing way he could, feeling as her head rested heavily on his shoulder as she clung to him. Today has been a wild nightmare for me. Today has been a wild nightmare for you, and your only concern was to worry about me. I was so scared. I'm scared of that man. I'm scared for you. I'm still scared. I'm scared because I'm so in love with you. The thought of you being gone physically hurts, Kate said, feeling as Mo's arm slip beneath her knees. He was cradling her against his chest as he turned, now leaning back on the couch, his legs extended. Kate was laying on top of him now, allowing her legs to stretch out and tangle with his. As she looked up at him, Kate felt as Mo gently brushed the hair from her eyes, smoothing it and tucking it behind her ear. Kate, no matter what, I'll always find my way back to you. Rain, shine, tidal wave, transcending lifetimes, whatever. I'll do everything in my power to always come back for you, he said, watching as Kate nodded, her head resting on his chest, and her eyes barely staying open. Kate, I love you, and I'm more in love with you than you'll ever know. Gently, he grazed his fingers through her hair, his other hand rubbing slowly up and down her back. He watched Kate's eyes close. She wasn't fighting it anymore, and he was happy to see that. With everything that had happened today, she had to be exhausted, both mentally and physically, and she absolutely needed to rest. Closing his eyes, Moko allowed his mind to start making a list of what he needed to do next. The first thing on his list was an as soon as possible group meeting. This was not something they'd anticipated. Lich wasn't their only problem anymore. Alright, that's it for now. There's gonna be 4 chapters in this video. Chapter 97 to 100. Chapter 97 to 100, so I'll record 3 others and then I'll just put them all together. And I'll see you guys later, another time. Chapter 98, Pieces on a Chessboard. We've all been blinded to things going on around us, Moko said as he looked around the group. We thought Lich was our only problem, but we were dead wrong. All of the guys were seated in a meeting room Marceline had booked for them at Nightosphere. Marshall looked furious, Ignitus was stony-faced, and Ash didn't even look like he cared. Look, this is typical Lich at this point, Ash said, running his fingers through his hair. I don't know why you're all this surprised, he said, sounding annoyed to even be there. They watched as Moko stood looking pissed. No, this isn't typical Lich, Ash. The guy took Kate's damn picture, Mo snapped. Kate said that the guy said, oh yes, let's just get all our info by playing telephone, Ash said acidly. Ash, why are you being such a dick? Marshall asked, sounding exasperated, now glowering at their drummer. Because this is what he does. Why is it a surprise? Because I was set the hell up, that's why. They told Kate that if I didn't meet with Lich, she wouldn't be around for me to look at anymore. Then all of a sudden I got arrested in my own home, which almost causes me to miss the meeting. After some nut ties her up and takes pictures of her like that while making the statement, the bosses would love her. Bosses, Ashton, that's plural, meaning more than one. Last time I checked, Lich couldn't split himself in two. Moko shouted, his fists clenched tightly as he tried calming himself. All right, Mo, calm down, Marshall said, only to be cut off. I am calm. How about a little more? How about a little more? Indoor voices, maybe? Marceline said, poking her head in the room. Sorry, guys, but Mo, I can hear you from the office, which means everyone else can hear you, too, she said, watching as he slowly composed himself. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just be aware of yourself is all. You done with the lecture, Marceline? We're trying to get business done, Ash said, waving her off, now turning away from her and back to the guys. So let's say there is a second guy. What can we do about it? We don't even know who it is. Marshall shot an apologetic look to Marceline, who flippantly shrugged her shoulders. Ash's attitude wasn't her problem. DC, Moko said suddenly. That might be the guy. Lich walked me out of the office and told the secretary to have someone called DC call him immediately. By the tone of his voice, he wanted that call yesterday. DC could be the initials of the guy. I mean, it's not like Lich has contacts in Washington, Ignitus said with a weak laugh, looking around the group. They all showed glances, shrugging their shoulders. He doesn't have connects in Washington, D.C., right? Ugh, don't tell me he's got like Secret Service or presidential connections, because that would be frickin' jacked, dude, FP said, rubbing his face. That could be reaching some egg. Marshall said quietly, watching as Mo shook his head. Marsh, we don't know that for certain, though. If we can't see it with our own eyes, then we can never be sure. We don't know who this guy is or who Lich works with, but we're gonna figure it out. Kate's already on it, actually, Moko said, FP looking up from his phone. No kidding? Yeah, she messaged me before the meeting started. She thinks that the guy might be a cop, or he could be a really good actor. Either way, she said she's going through every officer with those initials in the state's database. I told her it would take forever to do that, but she wanted to be the one on it, Moko said with a shrug. Well, hearing all of this, I think now is definitely the time to bring this up, Marshall said, now standing. Marcy, come in here and shut the door. Marceline did as she was told, sitting between Ignitus and Moko, feeling Ash's stare as she did. Marshall looked around the room. My dad's band, the Scream Kings, was managed by Aberdeen, and it was also managed by Lich King Studios. Lich King Studios! Turns out they dealt with the problem of their fans going missing. It all boiled down to Lich and his people trafficking the fans. Marshall looked around the room again. They were all paying attention. Good. I think chances are pretty good that we may have the same problem. Especially with what they said, Mo. We're going to have to keep an extra eye on Kate, Marshall said, watching as Marceline spoke up. I'll stick with her. I know after this Mo and Egg were going to search for the bugs in their places, so I figured Kate would stay with me until they were sure their place was okay. That's a good plan. I'm almost caught up with my stuff for Lich. I just need to sing a few more songs, Marshall said as Moko suddenly cut him off. Songs? Dude, that whole meeting with Lich in the first place. He wants me to cover you and get the tours back up and going, Mo said as now Ash laughed. Dude, you're so full of shit. I'm really not, though, he said, looking to Marshall as he shook his head. I told him I can't. That we're Marshall Lee and the Scream Kings. I knew you could, and thanks for that. I appreciate it more than you know, Marshall said, grinning at his friend before looking back to Marceline. Marcy, I want you to keep with someone too. I'd rather you be safe than sorry. You can always stay at my place if you don't want to stay at Daddy's, Ash said, smirking as everyone now looked towards Marceline and Ignitus. Marcy, would you prefer Ash's place or Daddy's? Ignitus said, cocking an eyebrow, watching as Marceline slowly turned her head towards him. Her face betrayed nothing. Ignitus, though, knew he was in trouble. You know what? I think I'd prefer Daddy's, she said, giving him a sharp look, watching as he grinned. He was in so much trouble later, but God, was that worth it? Marshall's sigh caught their attention. Back to the important stuff. For real, Marceline. Buddy system. You stick to Kate like glue, and if not Kate, then one of us. I don't want to see anything happen to you either because of all this. Hearing this, Marcy nodded, and checking the time she swore, standing up from her seat. Iggy, Mo, cliff notes later of what I missed, she said, walking to the door. Got a meeting with Dad in 5, so I'll see you guys later. Marshall, make sure Fiona gets my number. Quickly she walked from the room, and Marshall looked around at his band. Is there anything anyone can think of that we missed that needs to be discussed? FP opened his mouth to speak. However, Ash spoke first. Everyone knows everything, Marsh, Ash said with a shrug while Marshall shook his head, now starting to get annoyed. Dude, for real, what is with you? I know you and Marcy broke up, but it's gotta be more than that. What's wrong? Is Ma okay? He asked, watching as the guarded look on Ash's face fell as he looked away. Marshall knew he touched home somewhere. Ash, he learned, was a lot like Ashley when he was upset. The upside with Ash was that at least when you were making it obvious, you wanted to help. But at least he was at least willing to hear you out, rather than try and beat the crap out of you for doing so. Actually, Ma's been in and out of the hospital. They don't even know what's wrong with her, he said, shrugging his shoulders, sitting back in the chair. Okay, it's hard to feel bad for this guy when he's been abusing Marceline left and right. What's going on with her? Mo asked, watching as Ash shook his head. Dude, I don't know. She's been having issues for months now. She keeps getting these dizzy spells, and her ability to focus is so bad they fired her from her job. To be honest, I thought she was drinking again, and I feel like the biggest prick on earth for that. Some days she sounds fine, and some days she sounds like she has a lisp, and some days she sounds shitted, slurring everything. Her mood's been off the charts wonky, and lately she's just been sleeping. She worked herself to exhaustion, kinda sleeping and hasn't done anything. I swear the doctors are giving her the runaround, he said, his fingers running through his hair as he sighed. Not to mention all my money has been going to fixing up the house, so I have nothing saved. So I'm freaking out because we're short on the mortgage for the second time in 2 months, Ash said, now resting his head on his arms as he closed his eyes. Shit's shitty, Marsh. Anything we can do? Now Ash looked up at Marshall, the frustration and annoyance on his face more than obvious. I didn't tell you so you could pity me and try to fix my shitty situation. I told you because you asked me to. Ignoring the jab, Marshall sighed. Dude, I get that, but this sucks. You should be able to focus on your mom, and you know I can help with that. We can all do something to help. This isn't us pitying you, Ash. This would be us helping our family. Now Ash scoffed. Family? What the hell kind of dysfunctional family is this? The kind of family that completely ditches you, drops you like a newborn giraffe, and vanishes without a trace. Oh my god, this guy. He growled at Marshall, who ducked his head in shame. Ash now turned to Moko, who looked stunned to be on the receiving end of Ash's frustrations as well. What did Mo do? Or how about the kind of family that gets a girlfriend and completely forgets that everyone else exists, so much so they end up ghosting you all the time? He snapped, watching Moko flinch at his words. Ash wasn't wrong. Now, Ash turned to Ignitus, who grinned. He looked more than ready to fight as he opened his arms. So, what did I do to destroy your life, Ash? You just exist, and that's bad enough, he said softly, his rage shimmering. That's a little harsh, considering everything shitty that's happened to you lately was your own fault, FP said with a shrug, watching as Ash's anger boiled over. Me and Marcy ended because of you, Ignitus said in a dangerously soft voice. Ash glared at him, waiting for him to say something, to spill what he'd done to Marshall and Moko. It was more than obvious to him that Marceline hadn't told Marshall and Fiona what had happened that night. If she had, Marshall wouldn't be being this nice to him. He'd be treating him the way he had been when he and Marceline were on their first break. Which means that FP hasn't said anything to him either. Now Ash regarded the man across from him. Ignitus had been staring him down the whole time. This whole situation happening now, about having slapped Marceline, Ash suddenly realized was a power move. Marshall didn't know, and Ignitus wasn't going to tell him, at least not yet. Technically, she left me, Ash said slowly, looking curiously at Ignitus, who now nodded, very much understanding his unasked question. Yes, she did, he said in a more even voice. His actions to Ash were clear, but what he didn't say was even clearer. Ignitus without a doubt absolutely owned his ass, because his secret was safe with him, until it was more convenient for it not to be. In this moment, Ash was wrestling with the question of which was worse, Marshall's wrath and potentially having his hands broken, or letting Ignitus play puppet master with his dirty laundry, potentially spreading it to everyone on the planet. But he still hasn't said anything. Ash didn't like not knowing the rules to this game. He didn't know how far Ignitus was willing to go either, and that made him more than wary. Anything else to be said? Ignitus asked, watching Ash watch him. Screw it. Do you guys know why Marceline and I split? Did she ever tell you or Fiona that night you guys picked her up from FP's place? Ash asked, looking from Marshall to Ignitus. Marshall looked confused, but FP he was happy to see. FP he was happy to see looked stunned. He hadn't expected him to take this route, but in all fairness, neither did Ash. What are you talking about? Fiona and I never picked Marcy up. Now Ash turned to Ignitus, looking furious. So you lied. I did, right to your face. The whole time she was with me, and she is now. We're together, and you deserve to hear that from me, not from anyone else or from finding out on your own. This wasn't anything Ash hadn't already assumed, but as much as Ig was trying to piss him off today, and by the gods was he pissing him off, he still wasn't giving anything away. He was keeping that secret, it seemed, but now at least Ignitus knew he would out himself in a minute if he had to. Shaking his head, Ash stood. I'm done. He walked towards the door, the sound of Ignitus's voice stopping him. Cool. Mine wasn't nearly as dramatic as everyone else's roast, but I'll take Bane of Ash's existence over Nemesis any day, he said with a laugh, now looking over his shoulder at Ash, who'd paused at the door. We're not Nemesis, are we, Ash? He asked, watching as Ash gripped the door handle. I fucking hate you. Not yet. Fair enough, Ig said with a shrug. Have a good one, Ash. You too, Ig, he said, opening the door, passing through the threshold. Enjoy my sloppy seconds. Ash's only regret was that he hadn't seen Ignitus's face before he shut the door behind him. Walking down the hall, it had been mere moments later when the sound of furniture crashing met his ears. Ash had made it to the end of the hall and was waiting for the elevator when the conference room door crashed open. The elevator pinged to his left, and looking to his right, he saw FP barreling towards him more than halfway down the hall. Taking a half step, Ash stopped the door from closing. Gesturing towards the elevator, he watched as FP slowed to a walk, maintaining eye contact with him as they both stood in front of the open elevator. After you, Iggy, Ash said, gesturing towards the open door beside him. FP stepped onto the elevator, watching as Ash did the same. They both watched as Marshall stumbled over an overturned chair, exiting the room, heading towards the elevator. Sharing a glance, both Ash and FP hit the door close buttons on their sides of the door. The door shut before Marshall could reach them, and feeling the elevator move, Ash turned to face Ignitus. This the part where you kick my ass, or the part where you rub it in? No, even though I want to, and I'm not here to do that. But look, you're not going to disrespect Marcy in front of me, Ash. I'm not going to allow that. So what the hell is this, Ig? What's with the power play? You're holding this over my head. What the hell do you want? I don't want any problems. It's that simple. If you have any problem with Marcy and I want you to drop it. If I had my way, neither Marshall or Mo would even know I was seeing Marceline. I wanted you to be the first person to know because I'm not doing this behind your back. I'm not hiding shit from anyone. You lied to my face, and you know why. The elevator dinged, and the pair watched as a man stepped towards the entrance. Immediately, FP's arm swung out, blocking the opening. Trust me on this, you're gonna want to wait for the next one. Again, he jammed the door close button, watching as the man stepped back in shock. Now he turned to Ash, the door sliding closed. Marceline was terrified of you because you hit her. Why would I allow the person who she's afraid of into my apartment? Especially when she's there because she's afraid of them. Think about it, Ash. I'm not here to ruin your romantic life. We've been in love for years, and granted, we weren't obvious about it, but we shouldn't have to be. I'm not with Marcy to piss you off or to rub it in your face. We've been friends for years. Could have fooled me. Ignitus was starting to get frustrated, Ash could tell. He was watching as he clenched and unclenched his fists. Ash, are you going to cause us any problems or not? Ignitus said, now sounding annoyed. We'll have to wait and find out, won't we? Ash knew he was pissing Egg off. He wanted to see how far he could push him before he broke. I'm not kidding, Ashton. Neither am I, Ignitus, he said, now turning to him. What can you do to me? Beat me up? I was raised in an abusive household. I'll get over whatever physical damage you can dish out. But what can you do to stop me? He asked as they glared at each other. If I wanted to get back at you and Marcy, what could you even do to stop me? You're not going to kill me. Sure, you can beat me up, but I'll come back. What's to stop me from making her day a tormented, hellish nightmare all because you rubbed me the wrong way? It's not like you can be there with her every second of the way to stop me. I want to trust you not to do that. And I wanted to trust you, period. Now you'll have to just wait and see, he said as the elevator let out a low ding, opening onto the main lobby. You gonna keep me in here, or am I allowed to leave? Ignitus dropped his hand, allowing Ash to leave the elevator. I don't believe this guy. He's making me not feel any sympathy about his mom. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, his mom is innocent in that. His mom is innocent in this. I feel bad for that. But he doesn't deserve any help from any of his friends because he's just a dick. He's just a giant dick. Why? I'll never understand why he's like this. They watched each other wordlessly as he hit the button back to the meeting floor. The doors closed, and immediately Ash sighed, leaning against the wall. His head was killing him, and he was more than annoyed at the moment. Going head to head in a pissing match with Ignitus was exhausting. Sure, he'd assumed that at some point Ignitus and Marceline would get together, but not this soon. He was hurt and furious. That was never a good mix. Pushing off the wall, Ash walked towards the exit of the building, focusing on his breathing as he did so. That's what his new therapist had said to do when he was worked up. When he had a clear head, he was fine. It was when the emotions and the feelings of the situation muddled everything. That's what got him into the situation to begin with. The revolving door was straight ahead, and as he walked towards it, he noticed Marceline ahead of him, just stepping into it. Putting on a burst of speed, Ash slipped in behind her, leaning against the door, making it come to a halt. Ash watched as she slammed into it, dropping her things with a gasp. Oh my god. Crap. Marceline looked behind her, confused, but spotting Ash, she quickly turned around. He saw the change in her face. He'd watched how fast she paled, watched her eyes widen and heard the catch of her breath, and knew again that Ignitus had been telling the truth. Marceline was scared of him. Why wouldn't she be? Marcy, I'm sorry. Can we talk, please? Ash, there's nothing to talk about. I really think there is, he said, feeling as she leaned against the door, trying to make it budge, only she couldn't. There was nowhere left to go. Ash, please let me out. I just want to talk to you. His frustrations were getting the better of him, but immediately feeling guilt, watching as she winced, cringing at his raised voice. Then let me out! She screamed, her chest heaving as she fought back tears. Ash, the last time we talked and you didn't like what I had to say, you hit me. Now you're trapping me in here with you. Is it really that shocking that I'm scared? I don't feel safe alone with you, Ash. Now he reached out, grabbing her hand, watching as her eyes clamped shut, as she tried pulling back. You're being dramatic, Marcy. I wanted to apologize. The feel of something hard against Marceline's finger stopped him as his grip slowly tightened. It felt like an engagement ring. Ash, what the hell? Ash, you're hurting me. She gasped as he pulled her towards him, flipping her hand over, spotting the diamond wedged between her finger and her palm. Immediately he saw red. Alright, I'm taking a break. Ash was either going to kill her here and now, or she was going to faint dead away, and Marceline wasn't sure which prospect terrified her more. Suddenly her hand was released, and she stumbled back, hitting the ground, hearing as the door shifted. Feeling the breeze, Marceline slowly opened her eyes, and looking up, she spotted Ash, standing just outside the revolving door, still holding it in place. The hurt look on his face was more than obvious. You guys deserve each other. Marceline watched as he turned, walking down the street, nearly jumping out of her skin as the revolving door bumped against her back. Quickly, Marceline began picking up the papers, feeling as her hands trembled. Once she was sure she had everything, she walked out of the revolving door and walked back into the building. Miss Aberdeen, are you okay? Looking over, Marceline spotted her father's secretary. I'm sorry, but I saw a lot of what just happened. Do you need me to call someone? Security? Your father? Swallowing, Marceline squared her shoulders, turning to the woman with a smile. It's all right. He left, and everything's okay. Were you on your way to lunch? She asked, watching as the older woman smiled. I am. Are you sure you don't need me to call anyone? I'm on my way to Dad's office now anyway, so I'm okay. With a smile, the woman walked off, and Marceline headed into the elevator, hitting the button for the old recording studio in the basement. She listened to the ding of the elevator as it passed between the floors, passing the garage, and finally opening in the basement. She walked from the elevator, heading down the hall, and opened the third door on the left, slipping inside, and closed it behind her. The walls of the room were layered in sound-muffling foam, and old damaged and discarded items lay in piles around the room. Placing her things on the table near the door, Marceline walked forward, grabbing a broken microphone stand. She looked around briefly, casting an appraising eye around the room, and turning, she swung. The screen of an outdated desktop monitor shattered upon impact, chunks of glass and plastic flying as she beat it into oblivion, followed with a second and a third. Throwing the stand across the room, Marceline let out a sob, squeezing her eyes tightly shut, smothering it. Finally, she let out an angry scream. She was not going to cry because of him again. Taking slow breaths, Marceline forced herself to calm down, to bottle up those feelings of fear and panic. Swallowing the lump in her throat, Marceline ran her fingers through her hair, fixing the strays and smoothing it back down. Turning, she grabbed her things and walked from the room. Dude, what the hell was that? Marshall asked when FP returned to the room. That was a conversation that needed to happen without you, he said with a shrug, taking in Marshall's annoyed look. It needed to happen, Marsh, and considering the fact that Ash and I both walked away from this without even a scratch, I think you should just be grateful it didn't go south, he said, pushing the chairs into place. By the time he'd returned, Marshall and Mo had already fixed the table he flipped and had the majority of it cleaned, so he waved them off as he straightened the rest of the chairs. Look, right now, if it wasn't for the fact that Hudson spilled it to you, he said, looking at Marshall, or the fact that Kate is observant as hell, and we had to keep you both at our place, he said, now looking to Moko. Neither of you would have known until you got the wedding invites, he said, watching the look of surprise on their faces. It's nothing against you guys, but I want to do everything right by Marceline, especially when it comes to keeping her as far away from Lich and those creepy bastards as possible. Dude, I actually get that. I wish I'd done the same with Kate, Mo said quietly. Dude, regret nothing. At least you can show her off to the world, he said with a shrug. So what are we planning, Marshall? I know what our plan is, but what's the plan? Honestly, I'm not sure. With everything going on, it's hard to keep track of all this crap, Marshall said, shaking his head. I want to focus on debugging the houses, and I want none of the girls by themselves, like at all. Now he looked at Mokro. I'm gonna get these tracks finished by the end of the week, if it kills me. That'll at least fix the issue of Lich using you to cover for me, and the issue of tours starting up again, Marshall said, looking at Mo, who nodded. I hate this, but it's taking me a lot longer to get these done than I thought I would. I really don't know if I can make it. Marsh, is there anything either of us can do to make things easier? Yeah, Ig, make sure this issue with how Yeah, Ig, make sure this issue with you have with Ash is deader than dead. We'll be doing Lich's work for him if we're always fighting with each other. Valid point, and it's in the works. Genuinely, Marsh, the ball's in Ash's court. Whatever happens between he and I next is entirely on him and his actions, he said, watching as Marshall sighed. Dude, it is. This whole conversation was genuinely about me wanting to know if he was going to leave us alone or not, Marshall. All I want is my peace and my wife, and nothing more. What about Ash's situation? Mo asked, now looking back and forth between Marshall and FP. What about it? It's not like he ever wants our help or would accept anything we offered. Hell, I'd cover the 2 months and then the two after if he'd stop being such an aggravating shit, Ignitus said. I'll go half with anyone that wants to pitch in. I'll jump in on that, Marshall said, watching as Ignitus nodded. Same. The door opened, catching their attention, and once again Marceline walked in, placing a hand on FP's shoulder. Hey, I just got out of a meeting with Daddy. My schedule is clear for the rest of the day. Can you bring me home? No problem. Are you okay? He asked, looking up at her. Yeah, I just want to be home. Okay, let's go now. Mo, I'll be to your place in a little bit. Marsh, I'm serious. It's dead on my end within damn good reason, FP said with a nod to Marshall. Placing a gentle hand on Marcy's back, he guided her out of the room and down the hall towards the elevator. Marceline closed her eyes, feeling as his fingers began rubbing up her neck. The ding of the elevator caught her attention, and opening her eyes, Marceline was surprised to see the elevator's doors opening. How long had her eyes been closed? She could feel the warmth of his hand as it trailed from her neck to her shoulder, guiding her along with him inside. The doors closed, his finger on the garage button. The moment she turned towards him, Marceline could feel Ignitus's arm bring her close, holding her against his chest. She could feel his lips on her forehead and smiled, looking up at him. He kissed her once, twice, 3 times, and pulled back. Marcy, you're a fantastic liar, but I pick up bullshit better than you can lay it down, he said with a small smile at her look of surprise. I know you're not okay. You don't have to tell me what's wrong right now if you don't want to, but don't lie to me and say you're okay if you're not. I won't again. Good. Are you okay? He asked, watching as she looked away from him. No. Is there... The sound of the elevator's ding caught his attention, and as the doors opened, Ignitus watched as the same man from earlier made to get on. The man looked up, and the moment they made eye contact, he stepped back from the elevator. I'll catch the next one, he said as Ignitus reached over, pressing the door close button, watching as they slid shut. What was... Nothing important. Back to you. Is there anything you need me to do to help? Do you need me to listen to you vent? Do you need me to fight someone? Am I digging the grave to hide the body? He asked, watching as she smiled. Tell me what you need. Hearing this, Marceline closed her eyes, thinking about that. In this moment, what did she need? All she wanted was to feel safe, and she did now. Are you thinking? He asked gently, feeling as she nodded. Mm-hmm. Can we go to the store? I know you have to help Moko later, but there's something I want to do with you after. Yeah, that's no problem. Fiona. The cabin was quiet as Billy walked in with a large bass in one hand and his fishing pole in the other. It had become routine that after breakfast he, Fiona, and Ori had been spending their mornings at the river, Billy fishing, Ori sometimes in the swing, and Fiona occasionally swinging the infant or laying on the ground with her on a blanket. They would stay until early afternoon, until Aria needed her nap. Then Fiona would bring the baby up and put her to sleep with a bottle. Then either she or Billy would make lunch. Ari would wake up, and Fiona would feed her bits and pieces of what they'd had for lunch. Afternoons were a little less regimented. Fiona usually spent her time with the baby, sometimes going back with Billy to the river, and sometimes staying at the cabin. Billy had started noticing as the week was passing by that Fiona seemed to be zoned out, far off in space. She'd barely been speaking outside of talking to Arya when the baby babbled at her. Marshall, he knew, was supposed to be calling her, and he had to be, because Billy genuinely felt that she'd be much worse off were that not the case. Dropping the fish into the sink, Billy rinsed his hands and walked into the living room. He spotted Fiona sitting on the couch, holding Arya, who lay asleep against her chest. Fiona's hand rested on Ari's back, and Fiona was staring at the painting on the wall. Fiona, darling, you okay? He asked, standing in the threshold of the door, drying his hands on his jeans as he approached. Fiona? He stood in front of the painting, and she didn't react. It was like she was looking right through him. Now he crouched down in front of her, gently touching the hand resting on Ari's back. Fiona? The blonde blinked, feeling startled as she jumped, in turn startling Arya awake with a cry as she snapped to attention. Fiona held the baby closer to her, looking confused and frightened. Finally, her gaze found and held his as she soothed the crying baby. Fiona, you okay? I'm okay, she said with a strained smile, looking around the room as she spotted the pack and play. I'm gonna lay her down. Billy could see the tremble in her hands. I'm heading that way. Would you like me to do it? He asked, watching as Fiona securely hid Arya, her arm under Ari's legs and her hand on her back, holding the child to her chest as she stood. I can do it, but thank you, she said over her daughter's cries, humming softly as she rocked her, the baby quieting in her mother's arms. Billy walked into the kitchen working on the fish, as gently Fiona lay her in the pen, looking curiously at the large wet patch on the front of her onesie. Looking down at herself, Fiona immediately found the cause, and while she was happy, she was more than embarrassed. She felt more than embarrassed, staring at the large wet milk spot on her shirt. Closing her eyes, Fiona clenched the edge of the playpen and took a deep breath, slowly letting it out, and continued to do so, until the feeling of just needing to bawl finally passed. Billy, can I ask you an embarrassing favor? She asked, now looking over at him. Nothing you could send me to do could ever be worse than the horrible crap we do as pranks to each other as kids. What is it you need? Could you go to the store and buy a breast pump and those bra liner pads? They'd be in the baby section. Please? Absolutely. Is there any brand specifically you want? No, anything is fine. Okay, I just finished this fish. I'll cook it when I get back, okay? He asked, grabbing the keys to his bike, watching Fiona nod as he walked from the house. Fiona listened as the door closed, the sound of the motorcycle starting and revving before driving off. Walking from the living room, Fiona entered the bedroom, pulling out one of Marshall's t-shirts and a pair of pants, tossing them on the bed. Carefully, she peeled the sobbing t-shirt from her body as she walked to the bathroom. The plus side about Billy's bike was that she could hear him coming. In the bathroom, she tossed her shirt into the sink, filling it with warm water and soap. Unclipping her bra, she tossed it into the sink with her shirt, and tossing the rest of her clothes in the laundry basket, she climbed into the tub. Steaming hot water poured over her, and closing her eyes, Fiona felt the tears start to flow. She knew she was spacey lately. It was as if her focus would just slowly and steadily slip into nothing. Simone had called it disassociation. It was a disconnect in the way her mind was processing things, and disconnect was probably the most fitting word she could have used, because Fiona did feel disconnected. She felt disconnected from her thoughts, from her feelings. Sometimes she even felt disconnected from herself, like an out-of-body experience. Grabbing the shampoo, began washing her hair, blinking away her tears as she stood under the stream of hot water. Already she could feel her senses dulling again. Taking a conscious effort, Fiona turned it hotter and conditioned her hair, now slathering herself with the soapy cloth. What happened earlier had freaked her out. One minute she'd been looking at the painting, and the next was there with his hand on Ari's back. Fiona didn't remember Billy even entering the living room, and the way he'd looked at her. Had she almost dropped the baby? The thought alone sent more tears streaming down her cheeks. Closing her eyes, Fiona was trying to remember something more than the jolt of panic she'd felt and the sound of Ari's startled cry, but she couldn't. He stopped me from dropping my baby. At the thought alone, she let out a shuddering sob. What's wrong with me? Marshall listened as the other line rang, waiting for Fiona to pick up. He'd been so busy working he'd forgotten to call and check in with her last night, and with everything going on with Ash and FP, he'd forgotten again this morning. Now he waited, hoping Fiona would answer. Billy had been keeping him in the loop about Fiona. Simone wouldn't be able to fit Fiona in until tomorrow, and this bothered Marshall more than he'd admit. His mom was ecstatic to have him there, but Marshall missed Fiona and Aria. On average, Marshall was pulling 14-hour days. His access to the recording room had gotten a much-needed extension once Marceline had gotten a hold of the schedule. It felt like the week was going by in a blur of complete chaos. The plus side was that he'd finished his song for Hudson already, so he was spending all of his time hammering everything out for Litch. Marshall just wasn't sure he'd be able to get everything done in a week like he said he would. The phone rang to voicemail, and not for the first time this week. Marshall wondered if he should go back to the cabin. He had to admit, FP was pretty right when it came to the things he wanted, because for Marshall, the list was almost the same. He just wanted his family and happiness. Hey, Fiona, it's Wednesday and close to 5 now. I'm calling to check in on you and the baby. Are you guys okay? I'm sorry I forgot to check in last night and this morning. Things have gotten a bit hectic, but it's nothing we can't handle. I'll call back in a little bit if I don't hear from you first. There's a bit I want to fill you in on. Everybody's okay and we all miss you. I love you and I'll talk to you later. Bye, he said, ending the call. Fiona had been thinking about Marshall when the icy sting of the shower snapped her back to reality. Realizing she was shivering, truly, genuinely shivering, Fiona reached out a trembling hand, shutting off the water. She wasn't sure how long she'd been off in space again, but the room that had been steamy and warm was now chilly. Wrapping herself in a towel, Fiona paused, catching a glimpse in the mirror. Her skin was pink and her lips had a bluish hue to them. She shook as she walked from the room, heading towards the bedroom. When the sight in the living room had caught her attention, Billy was back. He'd already cooked and eaten. Ari was fed, dressed, bathed, and asleep in clean footy pajamas, drooling on Billy's shoulder. He turned his head when the bathroom door had opened, and was startled to see Fiona looking the way she did as she walked by. He'd been back for almost an hour and a half now, and he'd assumed that Fiona must have hopped in the shower a few minutes before he'd gotten back. Now, though, he could clearly see that he was wrong with that assumption. Fiona, are you? He hadn't even finished the question, watching as Fiona was shaking her head. Billy, I want my mom. I don't know what's wrong with me. Something's wrong, and I just need my mom, she said, wiping her eyes, taking hiccuping breaths as she hurried to the bedroom, shutting the door behind her. Pulling on Marshall's shirt, Fiona reveled in the smell, closing her eyes. Pulling her pants on, Fiona grabbed socks, pulling them on her feet, and finding a hoodie of Marshall's, she pulled that on too. Fiona was still shivering when she pulled the blanket around herself. Laying down for just a moment, she closed her eyes. Marceline. The night air was brisk, and Marceline watched the faint flickering of satellite as it passed by overhead. She was in the back of Ignitus's truck on the air mattress and blankets she'd gotten at the store. She knew this was going to be a great idea. The crunching of dried grass met her ears, and looking over the side of the truck bed, she watched as Ignitus walked up with 2 styrofoam cups and a plastic bag. I got us cocoa from the convenience store we passed before we pulled in here, he said, handing Marceline hers before he climbed into the bed of the truck, kicking off his shoes and laying on the air mattress. What's in the bag? A treat for now and later, he said, reaching into the bag and pulling out a spray can of whipped cream, shaking it and popping off the lid. Marceline peeled her lid off, holding the cocoa out in front of her, watching as he topped it with a decadent swirl of whipped cream, doing the same for his own. Bringing his arm round her shoulder, Ignitus settled in, feeling as Marceline snuggled against him, as they watched the stars slowly move overhead, sipping their cocoa as they did. So, have you thought about it? he asked suddenly, catching Marceline by surprise as she paused mid-sip. I have. What I wanted was to feel safe. When I'm with you, I always feel safe. What I needed in that moment was you, she said softly, watching as he smiled. Is it something you want to talk about now? He asked, feeling as Marceline scooted closer to him. Do you promise not to get mad? Regular or Pinky, I'm fine with either. Ig, I'm serious. Yes, me too. I promise not to get mad. It was Ash. He wanted to talk to me about something. He grabbed my hand and saw the ring. I think he was trying to apologize, but at that point I was too freaked out to care. Do you want me to talk to him for you? No. Is there anything you want me to do about the situation? Not right now. I don't want to think about it. I want to enjoy being here with you, she said with a smile, watching as Ignitus gave her a devious grin as he set his drink aside. Well, I can definitely get your mind onto something else if you like. What did you have in mind? Well, he said, raising the can of whipped cream to his lips and swallowing a mouthful, technically it is later. Want a taste? He asked. Marceline felt the warmth in her face as it heated up. They were outside, and he was being fresh like this, but they were parked in a big dark field of her choosing. Marceline also knew there was almost no chance of being caught. The thought still made her nervous. Maybe a little bit? She asked, watching as he sprayed a dollop onto his finger, bringing it to her waiting mouth. The whipped cream was cold and sweet on her tongue, and wrapping her lips around his finger, she slowly pulled it from her mouth, leaving it clean. Ignitus raised the can, watching as Marceline nodded, answering his unasked question. He sprayed a larger dollop onto his finger again, though this time, when he brought it towards her, it slipped, landing on her neck. The chill against her skin sent tingles down her spine, and for a brief moment Marceline thought that it may have been an accident, until she saw the gleam in his eye as he leaned forward, bringing his lips to her neck. The sensation of the cold cream, the heat of his tongue, and the feel of his lips against her neck was dizzying, making her breath catch and her heart race. Slowly he kissed up her neck, and the moment she felt his lips on her jaw, Marceline turned, bringing her lips to his. He tasted like whipped cream. She smiled at the thought as they continued, kissing under the stars. Fiona. Fiona closed her eyes, feeling as her mother's fingers brushed through her hair. I know the doctor said Marsh was okay now, but not being able to see him, I'm worried, Mom, she said as she lay in the bed, her head in Ellen's lap. I know you are, sweetie, but you already put off walking on your graduation day. I know you want to go to college, too, and you've already missed the sign-up for the fall and winter semesters. Marshall's okay. You don't have to be afraid, Fiona. Change, even good change, can be scary, but it's going to be okay. I'll always be here for you. Opening her eyes, Fiona looked around the dark room. It felt late. She could hear Billy talking, and slowly she pushed herself out of the bed, the blankets falling to the side. If it wasn't for the fact that she had to use the bathroom, she probably wouldn't have even moved. Fiona felt more exhausted now than she had earlier. Pulling the door open, Fiona squinted at the bright light of the living room. Oh, sweetie, you've lost so much weight. Fiona felt warmth on her cheeks before she was being held tightly. Do you see what I mean? Billy said, watching as Ellen squeezed her daughter tightly, Fiona looking as dazed and confused as she felt. I do. I've seen her like this before, but it wasn't this bad, Ellen said softly, her hand rubbing Fiona's cheek. I'm glad Simone has an open slot tomorrow, she said, watching as Fiona blinked her eyes, now focusing on her mother's. Mom? Billy called me, Ellen said, taking Fiona's hand, leading her towards the couch, sitting her down. Sweetie, I'm here to stay with you. I'm here to stay until you, Ari, and Marshall go home. I'm not leaving until you do. Fiona wordlessly nodded her head. She was afraid if she tried to speak, she would wake up, and this had been the best dream she'd had all week. Sweetie, have you eaten anything today? Wordlessly, Fiona shook her head, and Ellen looked towards Billy, who handed her a plate. Billy watched as Ellen fed her, and glancing over, he watched as Ari slept, turning her head, nuzzling her face against her blanket. When he looked back, Ellen was walking back into the room. Billy, if you have to, could you watch Ari tonight? I absolutely can. Where's Fiona? Bathroom. Thank you for calling me, she said, watching as Billy nodded. She needs help, Ellen. I'm glad she's getting it. Fiona said herself something's wrong with her, Billy said softly. Marshall was worried about postpartum depression, and from what I've seen, she's spiraling hard, Ellen. I know she is. Thank you for doing all of this for them. He he nodded, watching the door open, Ellen walking towards her. Fiona, sweetie, it's getting late, so we're going to head to bed now, okay? Ellen asked, pushing Fiona's hair from her face. Is Ari coming with us? Fiona asked in a quiet voice, looking from her mom to Billy. Would you like her to come with us? Ellen asked with a smile, watching as her daughter looked back and forth between the two. She's your baby, darling. If you want her with you, it's okay, he said, watching as Ellen leaned down, lifting Arya from the pen. Fiona wordlessly took her daughter, holding her against her chest. Ellen led them back to the bathroom, watching as Fiona lay Arya on the bed, being so careful not to wake her. Climbing on the bed, Fiona lay down next to Ari, her fingers tracing along her cheek. Ellen sat on the edge of the bed, smiling down at them. Fiona was being such a good mother. Reaching over, she grabbed the brush on the side table and began brushing out Fiona's hair. Starting from the bottom, Ellen slowly worked, brushing her way up until she could brush her hair through from root to tip. Fiona's eyes had closed and her breathing was had evened out. Proud couldn't describe how Ellen felt in this moment. All Fiona wanted was to take care of her daughter. She was completely spiraling, and all she wanted to do was care for her child. She was such a good mother. Pulling Fiona's hair back, Ellen braided it, her hands tugging the strands into place. Leaning over, she kissed Fiona's forehead. You're such a good mom, sweetie, Ellen said as she tucked Fiona in, switching off the light. My plan was to do 4 chapters, but I think I'm just gonna upload these 2 tonight because I really wanted to get back on YouTube. Like, I've been recording bits and pieces of of these 2 chapters over the last like week or so, and like I've been going away and then coming back and then going away, and I'll come back like a day later to read another paragraph. Like I'll read like a piece and then I'll go away and then come back like a day or two later. But like I just need to get back on YouTube, and I was gonna wait like another week, but it was I've been honestly just so stressed out, and I've been like enjoying reading A Guardian Angel when I can and when I want to, and honestly, I just wanted to get back on YouTube, so I'm back early because I wanted that. Tomorrow I'm running errands with my mom, and then on Sunday we're doing our 6 hours together, but after that I'll probably be um able to make some more videos. And I'm also planning to do like a I'm planning to do a best of weather updates video next. That's gonna be it's gonna be it's gonna be like a Christmas/New Year's specialty upload, and so that'll probably be, I don't know, Sunday. Oh no, my mom and I are hanging out on Sunday, so maybe Monday. I don't know. It'll Okay, I'll try and post it on Monday. If I can't, I'll post it the next day. But I will try. I'll have to see, and I'll also have to see how everything's going, and if I have like any if I have any appointments or anything. Um, I might try and record a couple more chapters in a bit. I'm gonna take a short break, but I might try and record a couple more chapters. And I think the next upload is gonna be my Reddit video, and then I'm gonna try and upload 4 chapters like I was originally planning to do, so that'll be chapter 99 to 102, I think. Yeah, okay. Either way, I'll see you guys soon with another upload. Like, I'm officially back now. I just wanted to come back on YouTube, so I came back like a week early. Mm, Actually, more than a week early, because I was gonna wait till my mom was officially back at work, which would be next Monday. Not in a not the Monday that's in a couple of days, but the Monday after that. So I'll upload more chapters, and I'll see you guys soon. Anyway, I love each and every one of you guys. Please don't forget to always be yourself. You are valid. Don't forget to be good to yourself and to others, and I will see all you guys in the next video. Bye.